Hi, I'm Aaron Dean, and this is Advocate Today. Harvard's so-called legacy admissions policy is now under investigation, and this comes 1 month after the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action. Harvard gives student applicants an edge if they have family ties to alumni. A group called Lawyers for Civil Rights is suing Harvard. They say legacy applicants are overwhelmingly white. In fact, they say 70% are white. The civil rights lawyers say legacy students made up 28% of the class of 2019. The Department of Education is also investigating if the policy violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The law prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. In June, the Supreme Court ended affirmative action in college admissions as a tool to diversify campuses. President Biden says that mental health should be taken as seriously as physical health. The Biden administration is proposing a requirement that insurance providers increase access to mental health care. The action reinforces the 2008 Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. Under the rule, insurers also need to evaluate and update coverage to make sure that they are in compliance. That might mean adding more mental health professionals to their network or reducing red tape to get one.
The rule will help families get the same access to mental health and substance use benefits through private insurance as they do to physical health care. And it's a major step in our work to ensure Americans can get the help that they need.
The administration estimates the new rule would require more than 200 additional health plans to improve mental health care for 90,000 people. State laws are making it more difficult for transgender youth to obtain the gender-affirming care that they need. That's according to a new study by the University of Michigan. Researchers say half of all adolescents in the U.S. now live more than an hour from the nearest clinic that provides gender-affirming care. The average was about 30 minutes until 20 states enacted policies restricting that type of health care. The largest increase in travel times are found in Florida, Texas, and Utah. Gender-affirming care is considered crucial by the Department of Health and Human Services, and groups including the American Medical Association and American Academy of Pediatrics agree. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is one of a large field of Republican candidates for president. His stance on LGBTQ+ issues and race, well, it's been controversial. DeSantis has signed into law legislation that limits or changes what can be taught in classrooms, including the so-called Don't Say Gay law and the Stop Woke Act. He also supported recent state education officials' efforts to change standards on teaching about slavery. Pulse nightclub shooting survivor and Equality Florida press secretary Brandon Wolf says that his actions in Florida have dangerous implications nationwide. Let's talk about, your governor, Ron DeSantis. As we know,
unfortunately,
right. As we know, he is one of the most vocal anti-LGBTQ leaders in America right now, pretty much. And, what has he done on the state level there to attack the rights of LGBTQ youth and adults, especially the things that we don't know about yet?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I appreciate you asking about the breadth and scope of the things that the governor has done, because there's only a sliver of it, right, that ends up on the front pages or in the headlines. And the truth is the governor has done incredible damage in a whole host of areas to LGBTQ people and really to freedom more broadly. I say that intentionally, that we are in a fight for freedom here in the state of Florida, and as a result, around the country. The governor has used certainly the state legislature as a weapon against LGBTQ people. We've seen policies passed like the ban on trans kids participating in sports, the infamous Don't Say LGBTQ law that's now been expanded to all 12 grades of school. We've certainly seen things around healthcare, banning people from accessing healthcare. Both young people and adults have had their healthcare access limited. We have an anti-trans bathroom law. We have a law that allows health insurers and healthcare providers the opportunity to deny someone care because they say they have a moral or ethical objection to that particular kind of healthcare. So we've seen a whole raft of policies introduced and signed into law by this governor. But it's also important to note that he's used state agencies to do the same thing. He's weaponized things like the Board of Medicine, the Department of Education, even the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, which is there really to stop kids from buying booze at the corner store. He's used all of them as weapons against the LGBTQ community, and he's created a climate that is really hostile toward us. He's, empowered bigotry across the state. He has fomented hate against LGBTQ people. And so really the result is a state of crisis for LGBTQ people. It's the reason that our organization issued an advisory warning people about the very real risks associated with being in the state of Florida right now, because in every lane, whether it's the legislature, the state agencies, or just using the bully pulpit, the governor has used power in Florida against LGBTQ people, and it's making it increasingly dangerous down here.
And like you said, he has used these state agencies to kind of further push these things that he wants to put out there. And one of the agencies that he has used recently that we even covered is the Board of Education. Talking about, changing this whole educational thing around Black history, trying to suggest that slavery has personal benefits. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit further? And what is the mood like in Florida right now, especially when it comes to educating our children?
Listen, if you told me a couple years ago that in 2023, a front runner for the GOP nomination would be trying to argue that slavery is somehow beneficial, or that, people learn skills by being enslaved that they can then use to their personal benefit, I probably would have laughed at you. But here we are. We have a person in Governor Ron DeSantis who is running on homophobia. He's running on transphobia. He's running on fomenting racism. He's running on rewriting history and propagandizing the American story. And it's really quite terrifying because, we're talking about young people's education. We're talking about people who have to be prepared to go into the workforce. We're talking about people that we're trying to get ready to be effective adults in society. And we have an entire state, the third largest state in the union, that's now rewriting its standards to try to whitewash or soften the truth about American history. The real truth about our country's history is that slavery was about rape. It was about torture. It was about taking babies from their mothers. It was about treating people like cattle. That at its core is what chattel slavery was all about. And in no way should we be making the argument that somebody out there might have then used those skills to turn around and personally benefit themselves. We should be honest about the brutality of chattel slavery so that we don't fall into making the same racist mistakes in the future that we've made in the past. I can tell you that people are furious here in the state of Florida, just like they are around the country. People are frustrated that we're still having these conversations instead of solving real problems, by the way, like rising property insurance rates or an affordable housing crisis or climate change that is quite literally boiling the water outside of Miami right now. We're not having those real conversations because our entire politic has been hijacked by this right-wing extremist agenda being led by someone like Governor Ron DeSantis.
Can you talk about how dangerous that is for our, for this election season?
Well, we've said from the very beginning that Ron DeSantis is not just a Florida problem. He is a national threat. He is a threat to freedom everywhere because, if you're frustrated by what's happening at the Florida Department of Education level, imagine giving him the keys to the U.S. Department of Education, right? And empowering those policymakers to influence national education policy. If you are frustrated by the way he's gone after Disney or, talked about going after Bud Light because they disagree with him, because he sees them as, quote, woke corporations, imagine giving him the keys to the U.S. Department of Treasury or asking the IRS to carry out his personal political vendettas. This is a man who only lives to serve himself, whose only purpose right now is to amass more wealth, power, and fame. And he's willing to bend and pervert every lever of government in order to get there. So as he crisscrosses the nation and talks about wanting to make America Florida, or talking about Florida as the blueprint for our country, we should take him at his word. What he really means is that he's coming for your classroom next. He's coming for your healthcare next. He's coming for your middle schooler on a soccer field next. He's going to try to put the federal government in your bathroom stall, peeking over to make sure you're in the right place. He has all of the same plans for the nation that he has implemented here in the state of Florida. And what we know that turns into is an absolute war on freedom. So people should know that. People should be honest about who Ron DeSantis is and what his agenda is and the threat it poses nationally.
The 60th anniversary of the March on Washington is coming up on August 28th, and this year could feature a new generation of freedom fighters. Over 250,000 people gathered along the National Mall in 1963 to push for the Civil Rights Act as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. That was 60 years ago. This year's march is being organized by the Anti-Defamation League, the National Action Network, the NAACP, and AAJC, among others. It's being held on August 26th. King's children are also attending. And thank you so much for watching Advocate Today. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to stream us live, and you can even subscribe on our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Aaron Dean, and this was Advocate Today.